disaster risk management can make a powerful tool. Intensive media campaigns with a relevant message on the need for more women's participation in climate change and disaster risk management matters could be very useful as well indeed. Finally, from my own perspective, I believe that the role of an organization like the Asian Development Bank can be essential in forging such partnerships, particularly to bridge the gaps between the stakeholders concerned with gender and those that are in the mainstream of the sector whose awareness level needs to be raised significantly. We can use our knowledge, experience, and resources to help the consultative process in this region, in our Asia-Pacific region, in developing gender-responsive and women-inclusive policies and legislation on climate change and disaster risk management. The role of civil society is particularly essential in bringing the voice of women among the most vulnerable groups, such as indigenous groups, poor, and those most exposed to environmental and disaster risks. By partnering with regional research institutes and government offices, in particular also statistical offices, we as ADB can also help the countries collect the evidence that gender does matter in policy and lawmaking for climate mitigation, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. I do know it is a very vast field. We have to do a lot together, but I think we have a good starting point. Let us work together, and I thank you for your audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the mic ready for the discussion, or? Yeah, we are ready for it, right? So we're going to take some questions and comments, and then we'll take a break and move on to the next presentation. Before getting your questions and comments, let's think about the issues and challenges that are related to the legislation in aid of climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. These are the things we need to think about. First, what legislations in support of climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reductions should be initiated and proposed by women parliamentarians at national level? We also need to think about what are some examples of such legislation. Are there any countries which have passed such legislation? And in the field of actions and responses, we need to think about what actions are needed to formulate and pass these legislations at country level, if they do not exist yet. Or if they exist, what is required to put such legislation into full effect? And also, how can we ensure that these legislations address women's concerns and gender issues into account? What are the challenges and barriers to the formulation of such legislations? So since we are women parliamentarians, women in politics and governance, we hope to have some feedbacks from you, your ideas and questions and comments on what kind of legislation we need to introduce at the national level. So shall we get some comments and questions? Okay, here's a question.
The question is, for most, Dr. Liquanan, for most of what you call broken promises, actually they happened regardless of sex, unless you talk about relativity with specific examples. I think that's a very interesting question, and it does call attention to what I was saying earlier, that often the reaction to advocates for women is, what's the difference? That happens to men as well. what's gender, what's sex got to do with it? Well, some of those broken promises in the areas of, let's say, employment, the areas of environmental degradation, the negative effects of globalization, undoubtedly, these have negative effects on men as well. But I guess the points we are making are two main points. One is that in most of these things, women are affected more negatively. Certainly, women's wages are lower. The types of jobs women have are more insecure. They, in fact, the specific examples of the types of jobs opened up by globalization for women are usually low-paying with very, very poor protection. So while men and women are affected, women in general suffer more. Then when we refer to broken promises, we were referring very specifically to commitments made by governments on what they are going to do for women. And essentially, they didn't do it, or they didn't do it to the extent that they had promised.
Okay, we have many questions now. Okay, we'll take these two, 1, 2, 3 questions and then take a break.
Thank you. My name is Luis de Souza Siqueira, and again, I'm from East Timor. This question is for Dr. Patricia. Would it be possible for you to share with us the Philippines' experience in dealing with women migrant workers? As we all know that Philippines is one of the biggest countries in terms of sending the workers abroad. And in the countries that they are working in, these women sometimes they not only face human rights abuse or sex abuse, but also they also become vulnerable because of the natural disasters. As a new country, Timor-Leste is facing a problem of high level of unemployment, and the government is realizing this issue and is now trying to send workers abroad. Since we have some people from the government and members of the parliamentarian from Timor in here, it is important if you can share your experience with us for us to prepare ourselves when we send these workers abroad. Thank you.
Okay, we'll give you the answers from the speakers at the end of the session. The second question, please. Okay.
I'm Sonia Capio. I'm representing Nueva Ecija with Councilor Tina Wicoco. My concern is, it's interesting that one of the gains cited out of Beijing platform is about allocation of budget for gender and development. But until now, even in the Philippines, the government, all government agencies seem to be at a loss how to use and where to get the 5% gender and development budget, how to use it. Because, yes, according to the National Commission on the Filipino Women, until now, when they got reports from different agencies here in the Philippines, they still get some reports about ballroom dancing as one of the GAD projects. And whenever, even in Nueva Ecija, whenever we talk about it and ask for implementation of GAD budget, they are still questioning about what kind of projects. So in short, can we have, from this level,